Hello everyone and welcome to Poser's Full Movie Recaps. Our film today is about two renowned former Special Forces soldiers on opposing sides, who are forced to reluctantly team up to stop an attack on a Chinese oil refinery in Iraq. After getting through relentless attacks from foreign mercenary armies, Yultime Chinese oil refinery employees in the Middle East's pleas for help have finally been answered. A private security team from China is on its way to extract all the trapped oil workers who are facing certain death. The team is led by Commander Dragon Liu, who's been staring at half-torn family photos that he hasn't seen in ages. When they reach their destination, the plant has been heavily damaged due to the constant attack it received from the rebels. They meet the company's head Professor Cheng, who immediately brings him up to speed and shares her plan of evacuation. They figure that with all the enemies surrounding the safer paths to the green zone, they will need to go through the highway of death to reach safety. Meanwhile, Chris, a former U.S. Marine, meets up with his brother Henry, who's been leading a group of mercenaries of his own. Chris starts to make fun of Henry's group by giving them funny nicknames, but Henry interrupts him and tells his brother of a mission that can bring them a lot of cash. The only thing they need to do is intercept a convoy to the green zone and kidnap an international criminal among them. Chris turns the offer down, as it will be an extremely high-risk mission and not worth their lives. He then goes back to the settlement he's been staying at, where he helps take care of the war-orphaned kids. A man named Owen arrives to take a look at the village's broken water pump, and tells Chris that they will need a lot of money to fix it as the damage is severe. Since water is one of the top on the list that people need on living, Chris starts to consider Henry's proposal to help the people get back their water supply. Back at the refinery, Liu and his team try to devise a plan to protect the civilians, while one of the employees named Mei watches them from the window. The next day, all the employee prepares to leave and shuts all the computers down, and Cheng put all the important keys in a bag and pass it to Mei. Not long after, the team guides the civilians on reinforced buses, but unaware that a traitor has marked the bus that will carry Cheng. Mei will be on Liu's bus, where the man pleasantly greets the lady, but the woman shows clear animosity toward the man. As they prepare to leave, the helicopters that have brought the team will be pushing ahead to the green zone, leaving the convoy on their own now. Inside the bus, Mei accidentally drops her notebook, which reveals the other half of the picture that Liu has been staring at earlier. Turns out that Mei is Liu's estranged daughter, and they haven't seen each other in a long time. When Liu tries to have a friendly conversation and mention her mother, she just mocks him and ignores the man. As they reach the highway of death, they see a lot of destroyed vehicles along the way. Liu urges Mei to sit and put her seatbelts on, and the girl begrudgingly obeys her father. As they start to cross the extremely dangerous part of the highway, some kids are seen alerting someone while the group speeds up to evade the traps. Liu pushes through a car that is blocking their way, and immediately, things start to explode around them. The convoy keeps on advancing, and Liu promises the worried Mei that he'll protect her. He adds that when he saw her name on the personnel that needs evacuation, he quickly volunteers for the mission to save her. The girl retorts that he's no hero to her like the others see him, and she will never forgive him for abandoning them in the past. Soon after, they leave the dangerous highway behind, only to discover a sandstorm ahead that blocks all the visuals of the road. It confuses the team as they had checked the weather earlier and it was supposed to be clear. Without any other choice, they keep driving blindly through the sandstorm where they notice that it doesn't behave like a normal storm. By then, Liu discovers that they lose contact with the other team members, and their signals are being jammed. When Mei peeks at the window, she notices something outside, but when it quickly disappears, she thinks that it's just because of her fear and imagination. However, there's really something else outside, and it's been Chris with the mercenaries who's been following the marked bus. Once they reach their desired position, the group shoots a hook to the last bus and uses a platform to climb the roof of the vehicle. Afterward, they blow up their car that is still attached to the bus, and because of this, the car bounces into the front and cracks the windshield. The mercenaries use the weakened windshield to enter the bus, and immediately neutralize the guard to take control inside. The same happened with another bus, but the only difference is the presence of a guard who relentlessly tries to fight off the mercenaries. Unfortunately, the said guard loses the losing battle and gets kicked outside the bus. Luckily, she is able to lie down just in time to avoid getting hit by the incoming bus. As the mercenaries take over the second bus, they get off the road and drive the bus away from the convoy. Once they reach their destination, Henry and his group take some of the passengers hostage, while Chris starts to doubt that these people are civilians and not criminals. When he tells his suspicion to Henry, the man denies this and dismisses his concern. Meanwhile, once the convoy has passed the sandstorm, Liu stops the bus to check in with others and realizes that they are missing two of the vehicles. They try to contact the guards in charge of the two missing bus to no avail, so Liu decides to call a backup, and the helicopter circles back to meet them. She instructs a comrade to board one of the helicopters, while he enlists the help of Mei as she's more familiar with the surrounding area. They discover that the enemy has used a jet engine to push the sand toward the road, creating a fake sandstorm in the process. Eventually, they find one of the buses in the middle of the road, and the guard who survived tells them that Americans were behind the attack. On the other hand, the other helicopter finds the enemy's convoy, and both sides immediately open fire on each other. Chris is able to maneuver his car to avoid getting hit and find a cover, and when it tries to catch them from behind, the mercenary is able to shoot down the helicopter. Lou instructs his men to take the rest of the buses to the green zone, while he circles back to look for the other missing vehicle. When they find the abandoned bus, he learns that most of the passengers are alive except for Cheng and her assistants who have been missing. When Chris and his companions arrive at their base, he angrily pushes Henry and demands an answer on what really is going on. It turns out the one who hired Henry is Owen, who's been the leader of the rebels that have been relentlessly attacking the oil refinery. He explains that he is sick and tired of working for those companies, and he plans to make big money by taking control of its oil reserves. Chris refused to be part of his scheme, even when Owen promises him a big pay if he agrees to be his head of security. When Owen mentions that he needs the money for the water, Chris figures that it's been Owen all along who sabotages the village's water supply. He then decides to leave the base, and advises his brother to get out of Owen's clutches while he still can, before he drives away. After he leaves, Henry tries to tell Owen that they don't need Chris to do the job, but the man shoots him while his underlings shoot the rest of the mercenaries that are not in his pocket. Owen then instructs his men to take Henry's body to the radio tower, and make it look like it's Chinese payback. Later, Lou spots Chris driving through the desert and decides to follow the man instead of shooting him. Since the helicopter is low on fuel, the pilot drops Lou near the village to scout the area. When Chris reaches his home, he's overwhelmed by the guilt of the past and by leaving his brother to the enemy's hand. One of the kids approaches Chris and asks him to come out and play, and that's when Lou finds him outside and demands some answers. Chris stays quiet and refuses to talk, and when a kid approaches them, Lou pretends to leave to avoid hurting the boy. He then discreetly follows Chris to gather more intel, especially when the man leaves to meet his brother at their usual spot. Chris devastatingly discovers the corpse of his brother inside the abandoned building, and when Lou enters the premises, he ambushes the man thinking that he might be responsible for Henry's demise. As the fight ensued, the two use any object around against their opponent, as they are clearly both knowledgeable on improvising in hand-to-hand combat. When Chris pushes a vehicle to squash Lou, the Chinese man grabs Henry's body to save it from being a splatter on the floor. Finally, the pair decide to take a halt and talk, which makes them realize that they have an enemy in common. At the same moment, a group of French men arrives demanding money, meaning that Owen has duped them as well. While trying to tell them off, the pair who's been fighting to get a hold of the grenade accidentally pulls its pin, making the French leave before it explodes. Meanwhile, Chris and Lou hurriedly try to put the pin back and proceed to check the French men outside. They find out that the group is getting their weapons to fire at them, so the duo rushes back inside and starts to argue about which bullet to use for the weapon they found. As they cannot find the right bullet, Chris decides to just use the grenade and asks Lou to hand him some. Since the French are relentlessly firing near a bunch of grenades, Lou refuses and tells Chris to get the explosive himself because it's too dangerous. But with Chris's current position, he has no chance to reach the grenade himself without getting shot, so Lou begrudgingly crawls to reach it. After throwing out several grenades outside, the firing suddenly stops, so Lou takes out his weapon and demands some answers from Chris again. The man ignores Lou and walks out to check his truck, and when he finds it destroyed, he finally tells Lou about Owen and explains the real circumstances of the kidnapping. They officially introduce themselves to each other, and shake hands as if they are old friends. Lou learns that Chris knows how to speak Chinese, and even coaches the man with some right pronunciation of the words. Somewhere else, Owen takes Cheng and the other hostages to the oil refinery headquarters, and demands her to give him access to the refinery's oil reserve. Initially, Cheng refuses to give him any information, but when Owen starts shooting the other employees, she gives in when the last one turns out to be her own son. She admits that the key and the codes were in her bag, which can be tracked through her phone in the bag as well. Later, Chris, Lou, and May go back into the village, and when she hears Cheng's phone ringing, she answers, but the caller immediately hangs up. Lou calls his team to update, and after learning that the rest of the employees are safe, he joins Chris in entertaining the kids. When it's time for the kids' meal, the pair goes out to talk and Chris tells Lou that he found May's notebook. He plans to give it back to the girl himself so he can have a way in to hit on her, but Lou reveals that she's his daughter and they have a strained relationship. Chris shares his own family drama where he used to work with his father and Henry. They lost their father in a battle for his country, which heavily rests on his conscience. Lou explains that protecting the country means his dad was protecting the families living in it as well, so his father was just trying to safeguard him and his brother Henry. The conversation is overheard by May, who begins to better understand her father being absent most of her life. Suddenly, they hear some footsteps from outside, so May takes the kids away while the pair investigates outside. They quickly discover that the armed men are coming for them, so one by one, the pair tries to quietly neutralize the enemy. Along the way, the two continue to bicker about who's getting high or low, and how to properly give a hand signal. When Chris finally goes high, he shoots anyone that Lou had missed to knock out, but in the process, it reveals his location to the enemies. They shoot a rocket at his balcony, so when Chris sees this, he rushes to jump and roll out of the way of the falling tower. He then goes inside to get Chang's phone from May, as he figures that it is what the enemy has been looking for. The villager comes out to help and surrounds the enemy, but the thug responds by revealing a grenade in his hand. He demands to hand him Chang's bag to avoid bloodshed, so to save the people, Chris gives it to them despite May's pleas not to. This effectively causes Owen's men to leave, and May later explains that the bag contains the key and password to open the flow from the refinery. She adds that if the terrorist succeeds, it will be the biggest oil heist in history which can affect the whole country's economy. After realizing the possible result of his action, Chris offers his big truck with a jet engine to enter the refinery. Lou asks May to stay at the village, she agrees but warns them not to use guns in the refinery to avoid an explosion. After the duo leave, May notices a parked car she can use to follow them later. Back at the headquarters, the thugs arrive and give the bag to Owen. He then hands it to Cheng, who immediately activates the computer to save her son. The oil starts flowing through the pipelines across the country, and reaches some huge ships at the coast that has been waiting to smuggle it. When the pair finally approaches the refinery, the guards immediately see them and open fire and shoot a rocket. But Chris is an expert on dodging it all and drives the truck through the barriers, until they are finally able to reach inside the plant. When Owen learns of the intruders, he breaks the key from the computer to prevent anyone from stopping the oil transfer. He takes some personal guard to leave the premises, and order the rest of his men after the duo. Outside, Chris and Lou get separated and fight a bunch of Owen's underlings to reach inside. Thankfully, both of them are very competent in defending themselves from multiple enemies, and help save each other in the middle of the fight. Suddenly, Owen shows up and taunts the pair before leaving, and the two continue to advance inside to reach the hostages. Lou throws a knife at the guard inside but intentionally misses, so while the guard is distracted by him, Chris is able to knock him out with a hose. Lou uses this chance to let Cheng and his son escape, then go back to help Chris to fight the other guards. In the middle of the commotion, Lou asks Chris to throw him a magazine, but the two mistakenly exchange the wrong weapon again. Because of this, the pair almost gets shot by the enemies, and they soon run out of bullets to exchange fire. Since the one they're fighting is Henry's former mercenary, Chris thought to rile up the guy with a bad nickname, while Lou circles him from behind. After Lou ambushes the guard, he tells Chris to go to catch up to Owen as he handles what's left of the guards inside. Unfortunately, Owen already drives away in a car, and Chris is unable to follow him on foot. Luckily, May arrives in time in Chris's other priced truck, so they go after Owen and follow him to the road. Back at the refinery, Lou uses a fire-blocking foam gun to stop the escaping thug, but the foam gun breaks and spills foam all over the place. Lou grabs some wires to attach to his belt, so he will be able to lift himself and not drown in the foams. The guard jumps him again and they both fall on the ground, and continue to exchange punches while trying not to drown. Eventually, Lou is able to use the wire to push the thug against the machinery, finally knocking him out. He then uses a fan to get rid of all the foam in his body, before he follows Chris outside. At the same time, Owen opens fire at Chris and the man shoots back in return. But Owen's machine gun soon runs out of bullets, so the man decides to drive to the desert instead, challenging Chris's truck's capability. Owen is not wrong in his assumption, as Chris's truck soon crashes on a bigger slope causing Owen to escape their clutches. Not long after, Lou arrives on Chris's big truck with the jet engine, and the trio goes back on chasing Owen. While inside the truck, Lou complains that their vehicle is too slow to catch up to the bad guy, so Chris decides to use the truck's hidden capabilities and ask them to hold on. He then presses a button that activates the jet's engine, and the truck shoots out at a great speed that allows them to reach the stolen oil trucks along the way. Unable to stop, they hit one of the trucks which flies high and lands against the other truck, triggering a chain of explosions that makes Owen lose all the oil and sends his car flying too. Owen survives the crash but suffers some extreme burns. He desperately offers Chris some money, but when the man refuses again, Owen drives away in his car to escape. When they try to follow him, the truck gets stuck as it's been leaking and creating mud around it, so Chris instructs May to press some buttons to allow the truck to slide through the sand using the power of the engine. Lou and May drive while Chris holds onto the side of the truck. When they finally reach Owen in his car, it accidentally gets stuck in the front of the truck while they uncontrollably head to a cliff. Lou tries to warn Chris of the dangers ahead, but the man cannot be able to hear him from outside the truck. Owen is able to get loose and drives away from the truck, and Lou manages to tie him and May to a rope and jump out of the truck right before it falls to the cliff. Soon after, they discover that the rope is attached to Owen's car when the man tries to leave. His car gets pulled off to the cliff too, and when he sees the duo, he grins thinking that they will die along with him. When Lou realizes this, he quickly cuts the rope in time and they safely land on a rock platform. After Owen crashes with his car, they shout to see if Chris survives but no one answers. May sees her notebook in Lou's pocket, and discovers that he put their family picture back together. The father and daughter reconcile with an embrace, but the heartwarming moment gets interrupted by Chris, who's been climbing the rocks all along. They help him up and the two men start to bicker again when Chris hits on May, declaring that he's totally alive, disease-free, and feels like they're already a family. Now, the only problem left is how they will be able to get out of the platform, and the only idea they have is to start screaming for help. Subscribe to watch more videos like this. You can also hit the notification bell and like the video to help the channel out. Thank you.